Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you're watching the Mojo story. President Trump has lavished praise on Prime Minister Modi, and he said that, calling him the nicest looking guy in his own style. Now, Trump speaks in his own style. He says the nicest looking guy and a killer, tough as hell, while claiming credit for preventing a war between India and Pakistan. He was speaking at the APEC business luncheon in South Korea. Trump said Washington is working on a new trade deal with India and that he shares love and great respect for Prime Minister Modi. He recounted that he'd use trade pressure to diffuse tension between the two nuclear armed neighbors, India and Pakistan, asserting that both Modi and Pakistan's leadership uh, that US wouldn't pursue trade talks while they were fighting. India has, of course, consistently denied any third party mediation, maintaining that all peace understandings were with Pakistan were, of course, bilateral. That is, the Pakistani DGMO really got in touch with the Indian DGMO, and that really led to that sort of an agreement, the ceasefire that came in place. Now, we today joined by an eminent panel to discuss this issue. We joined by, let's introduce our guests. We joined by General Dhruv Katoch. Welcome to Mojo Story, sir. Uh, Welcome to Mojo Story, General Saab. And we're also joined by Rabinder Sachdev. Welcome to Mojo Story, Rabinder ji. Like both our guests, welcome to the show. Uh, I really want to start by playing that sound bite. That's a very interesting sound bite, what Trump really said. Uh, it's important to understand that Trump has said this umpteen times and he's repeated that today. Let's first hear what Trump had to say before we proceed further.
India and Pakistan. So I'm doing a trade deal with India, and I have great respect and love. As you know, for Prime Minister Modi, we have a great relationship. Likewise, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is a great guy, and the Field Marshal, they have a Field Marshal. You know why he's a Field Marshal? He's a great fighter. He really is. He's a great guy, too. And so I know them all. And I'm reading that 7 planes were shot down. They're going at it, and they're really starting to go. And it's a big thing. These are 2 nuclear nations, and they're really going at it. And I called Prime Minister Modi. I said, we can't make a trade deal with you. No, we must make a trade deal. I said, no, we can't. You're starting a war with Pakistan. We're not going to do it. And then I called Pakistan. I said, we're not going to do trade with you because you're fighting with India. And, 2 nuclear nations. And they said, no, you should let us fight. They both said that. They're warring. They're strong people, I'll tell you what. Prime Minister Modi is the nicest looking guy. He says, and he looks like you'd like to have your father, like, he's a killer. He's tough as hell. No, we will fight. I said, whoa, this is the same man that I know. But after a little while, and they're good people, and after literally 2 days, they called up and they said, we understand, and they stopped fighting. How is that? Isn't that amazing? Now, you think Biden would have done that? I don't think so. Most people wouldn't have thought of it, but, they wouldn't have thought of it. No, but here we are, we're doing deals. So you add an extra sentence.
General Katoch, before we go into what he said, he has yet again repeated, he's perhaps said it for the first time directly, that he called up Prime Minister Modi, he spoke to Prime Minister Modi. Now, India has been making it clear that there was no telephonic conversation between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi. What is he saying? One cannot understand if there was no telephonic conversation between the 2 leaders. What is he referring to? He said that, is he the same person that he believes is very soft spoken or whatever he says about Prime Minister? And then he goes on to say that he was very tough. He said that no, we want to have this war. What sort of a conversation is this when there was no telephonic conversation that's happened?
Thank you, Zafar. Zafar, actually, I've met quite a few in the last, say, a month or so. A lot of Americans, their scholars and their high-ranking people from think tanks have come. And I think they're equally confused as to what President Trump is saying. Firstly, his conversation or purported conversation with Prime Minister Modi,
Yeah,
any conversation which takes place between heads of states is recorded. There is no private conversation,
yeah,
right? So, I mean, if he claims a conversation has taken place, there will be a record of it. And
yeah,
unfortunately, there is no record either from the Indian side or from the American side. That conversation did not take place. Yes, it is true that Vice President Vance had spoken to the Indian leadership. I think he spoke to the External Affairs Minister, and he gave the information that Pakistan is going to carry out very heavy attacks. That was, I think on the
right,
night of 9 something, and we told him so be it. We told him that should we do something, there will be a retaliation, and we had that retaliation coming on the very next day,
yeah,
and that retaliation crippled Pakistan.
yeah,
The airfields went bust. The aircraft were blown out of the sky. They suffered very, very heavy damages, and they sued for peace. Now,
right,
they they requested the Americans. Now, this part of it is true. They told the Americans, please tell India to stop. That time, when the
yeah,
Americans said, listen, this is what Pakistan wants, the Indian response to the Americans was very clear. We
yeah,
said, if Pakistan wants it, they should speak to us directly. We are not going to stop like that, because we had already made it very clear from the very first day that
yeah,
we will cease hostilities. India didn't want to continue with the war right as soon as we destroyed those camps. Now, Pakistan, then that was the time when the DGMO's call came, and we said, okay, they literally begged for peace. Now, there is something,
right,
in a lighter way, I will say, perhaps, Trump is aging, he's getting very, very old. And sometimes when you get very old, you remember a lot of things which didn't happen. And I think that is what is happening with President Trump. He is remembering a very large number of things which haven't happened at all. And
yeah,
the only thing which I'm surprised is that his advisors haven't told him. But the second point, when you just played out President Trump's remarks,
yeah,
please understand it was for a home audience. You saw the clapping which was taking place.
yeah,
So he is really speaking to his home audience, and being a powerful
yeah,
country, he couldn't care less for anybody else. He has humiliated the Europeans. He has humiliated everybody. But with India, he hasn't really been able to do it. The Pakistanis have gone crawling to him, which is why he calls the field marshal a great fighter. I mean, a man who doesn't fight and he's a great fighter. Now that itself is strange. But he's President Trump. He's free to say whatever he says. I think the Indian stance has been very clear. We are not reacting. We are not reacting. Let him say what he wants to say, which is also the reason why the Prime Minister didn't go to quite a few places, because President
yeah,
Trump was there. He'll simply make outrageous statements to embarrass everybody.
yeah.
So that is the way it is. Zafar.
Right, absolutely, and very unpredictable also what he's going to say. We've seen this happening so many times, and there are like when Shehbaz Sharif was with President Trump, and he was flattering the president, setting records of flattery. Now we don't know what is the situation going to develop because it's all in front of camera. So perhaps that's another reason that the prime minister is really wanting to avoid for the moment. But I want to ask you, Rabinderji, what is the deal on this trade deal, this new trade deal? What is its reality? Where has it reached? We've seen lots of back and forth on this, but what is the real status of this new trade deal?
Hello, yeah, pleasure to be with
Yeah.
you and
Yeah.
General Katoch. Thank you, sirs.
Yeah,
One doesn't know, one is reading tea leaves or the business of tea. Uh, with regards to trade, what I see, and of course, none of us is, at least I'm not privy to the exact inside fly in the room kind of information, but we can make our assessments. To me, what it seems is that we are heading by the end of this year, that's in the next 2 months, towards a trade deal with the US. Or rather, let me put it this way: that by the end of by the end of December, we are heading to perhaps reduce our Russian oil imports drastically. Couple of reasons for that. One is that the discounts are not so much as they were earlier. The cost is going up to operate the shadow fleets, insurance, and all. And also in January, the European Union is kicking in with its 19th round of sanctions, which will be pretty strict again. Okay.
Right.
And for our corporate, our business, our exports to bear the burden of those costs will make the whole bargain on the Russian oil thing uneconomic for us. So as we've been saying that we are going with the market conditions in our national interest, I think we could and we might reach a tipping point by around end December on the Russian oil thing. The way things are going around, Rosneft is blacked out. In fact, even Nayara in India, they will not be able to export. So when these things are out there, then it does become at some point a pure economic calculation also. So that's the thing. But at the same time, then what we see happening here on the deal is that we will adjust. We will adjust something, it seems. And the Americans would also adjust what they adjust. Let us see. We will adjust. It seems from the reports coming out that we will allow some more market access to agriculture products from America, the non-GMO variety, let us say, right? And we will adjust on some other aspects, maybe of digital, data localization, because in the trade deal, there are a bunch of things. See, one is the tariffs. In fact, I think tariffs are out of the window. It's not the discussion of the tariffs. The discussion is on the non-tariff barriers or the non-tariff situations. So we will, I think, probably adjust, highly probably we'll adjust on some of those things. America will adjust. Now, where will we end up? Well, Pakistan is 19% now, so probably we could be wanting and hoping to be in a better situation with a deal like a 15-16%. But then for that, one last point, for that, what price does Trump extract? If you see, Trump has extracted a dollar price from each of the big power deals that he has done. With European Union, 15% tariff, but EU has promised to invest buy $1.35 trillion from US in the next 3 years, 600 billions in natural gas, oil, 750 investment. Yesterday, Japan, not maybe fully finalized yet, but yes, whatever with the tariff percentage, Japanese companies promising to invest 550 billion or 500 billion next 3 years. South Korea today, and South Korea is an interesting one. Trump wants them to invest $350 billion in cash upfront for a trade deal, right? So it depends upon the price that he's wanting to or extract, and nations are going along, because bottom line is that nations do need the American economy. Whatever be the situation, there's a saying, when life gives you a lemon, make lemonade. We have to make the best lemonade we can with respect to our Indian interests.
Right. And it's become very common, this word trade deal now. Trump, whenever he speaks in whatever context, it's always about some sort of a deal. And he says that he's the master deal maker. And he's already resolved many wars, 9 to 10 wars. He's also trying to settle in Pakistan, Afghanistan war. I think he's still not found an opportunity to go into that direction, but he will if he finds an opportunity. He has expressed his desire to solve that war also. He says it's very easy for him to solve. General Katoj, it is not a normal situation. On one hand, we're talking about trade deal. On the other hand, we're talking about resolving wars. He is now we lost the count how many times he said that he resolved the war. He used trade as a weapon to resolve the war between India and Pakistan. Today, he goes a step further, says that he spoke to the Prime Minister and then narrated that conversation. What did he tell the Prime Minister? What did Prime Minister tell him? Then he called Asim Munir a great fighter. How should India react to such statements? I know you say that we are not reacting to any of these statements, but the fact is that he is the President of America. Also, perhaps with a big ego, because India did not say that he was involved in resolving the India-Pakistan conflict, and he would have wanted that because he's also, after all, looking for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, Zafar, just starting, he just come back from Japan. I'm talking about President Trump. And the Japanese have recommended him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Their recommendations have gone. That is the first part. Right. I have no doubts that, when we are coming to 2026,
Yeah.
I don't know who else will get the Nobel Peace Prize, but I'm certain President Trump will get it. This has gone far enough. And I think the world is fed up and they will say, just give him the prize, or, get away with it. Why this Nobel Peace Prize is important for President Trump? It is because Barack Obama got it. And that hurts him. He says, Barack Obama got it for not doing anything at all. And he has stopped wars. And so he keeps counting the wars which he has stopped. I think, this sort of an ego trip which President Trump is on, it's very, very difficult to veer him off that course. And all his advisors, they're least interested also. That is one. Number two, when we are looking at the trade deal per se, I was just hearing what Mr. Piyush Goyal was, he had a presser, and in that he just come back from Europe. And on the American deal, he made it very clear. He said it could take a month, it could take 2 months, it could take 6 months, but it has to be a win-win situation. He said we are not targeting a time.
Right.
So at India will do what it has to do, regardless of what it is. That is, so on that trade, I'm quite certain that we will take the right course of action. We are not going to sell Indian interest down the drain, though of course we may buy some maize and convert that into ethanol, but not for eating purposes.
Yeah.
So that will be as far as the trade is concerned. But on the larger point, I don't think President Trump is really capable of stopping wars. The only war which he needed to stop was the Russia-Ukraine war, and that is going nowhere. And when he talks about India and Pakistan, and he says that both are nuclear weapon states, and the aircraft were flying, and 7 beautiful aircraft were brought down. Please remember, Russia is a nuclear power, and it is fighting the European Union. I beg your pardon, is fighting NATO. NATO is supplying everything to Ukraine. It is not Ukraine which is fighting by itself. And who are the nuclear power members in Ukraine in NATO? The United States, France, Britain. And who is supporting Russia on the other side? China. So all the nuclear power states are actually on battle right now. He's got no right, moral or otherwise, to lecture India. We know where our interests lie, and we will continue with those interests. But coming on to the question of tariffs on oil, you see, Mr. Sachdev very correctly said, we are going to buy oil from wherever we can, but it has to be priced. And if Americans are willing to give it to us cheaper, or at least competitive to the Russians, well, so be it. But you cannot do something if which is going to go drastically against Indian interest. It'll be political suicide for India and economically very problematic. So I think I will trust the Indian leadership. We've got a strong leadership. They will do the best they can under the circumstances. We must remember, we don't hold all the cards. The Americans hold the cards. So we will play a hand as good as we can. And I think that is the best that we can hope for. Zafar.
Right. Ravinderji, this mixing of flattery with economic leverage. On one hand, Trump has imposed tariffs on India, very high tariffs on India. And on the other hand, he is indulging in this flattery, talking about Prime Minister Modi and saying that he's his friend. These are two contrasting things. On one hand, you are putting tariffs on India, very hard and very strict tariffs. You are taking a different yardstick when it comes to buying Russian oil, something else for China, something else for India. On the other hand, you are praising the Indian leader. How should the Indian leader respond? Because the two are not distinct. He is the leader of a country, the country on which you have imposed tariffs.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
A great question. The point is, I think, in fact, if I may, I've written a book on Trump, 770 pages, gone into his childhood, his professional life in New York, his negotiating style, and how to deal with Trump. 1/3 of my book, 250 pages, is exactly that, by the way. So the point is, to understand Trump, I think we have to understand New York style power players, negotiation back and forth.
Right.
Bluff, artificial deadlines, create an aura, okay, have more information than your competitor, hold meetings in settings which are very impressive so that the other party feels a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, these are a few things, and if you see what he's doing more or less along those lines. And he respects strength, absolutely. He has dealt with the mafia in the 80s. The construction business, he was a developer, right? There
Yeah.
were trade unions controlled by mafias. He had to work with the mafias to get his business going. The cement business was controlled by the mafias. To get cement, he had to work with the mafias. The New York municipal government was highly corrupt. He worked with them. There was competition out there, high stakes, ego. Media was there. He would plant stories in the tabloids, projecting himself as ultra rich, even though at that point he was maybe not that rich. So that's his, in a way, SOP. And now he has much more levers to play around with. So that's what he does now. Secondly, with respect to Prime Minister Modi, yes, he respects strength and power. He does respect, strong leaders. And maybe that's one area where Munir has been able to pitch himself in by indicating or conveying to Trump that he's a strong. Trump wants a single window clearance in some countries or as many as he can. Munir, militarily, yes, sure, whatever be, he's the general or field marshal, but Munir also has positioned himself as a religious, or having high support on the radicals and the fundamentalists of Islam. So Trump finds that guy, okay, single window guy, I can talk to him, as you said, or General Katoch was saying, they come crawling, they do flattery, he's happy, and this is a strong guy, he'll do whatever I want. Now, with India and with Modi, I think perhaps what we are doing is absolutely the way we have to stay firm, as I feel. But yes, there's nothing wrong in flattery also. We have to see what objectives we want. So there is probably, nothing much wrong, if not in flattery, but in creating situations so that he feels that his ego is massaged or whatever. That is in case we want to work with America and Trump. In case we do not want to work, then fine, there's a different path. But in case we realize, and that's where, maybe common sense lies, that America long term is a valuable partner for us, both of us mutually. So we have to then perhaps, we have to be nimble, I would say, and we have to be nimble.
Right. That's a very important point. Of course, how it is also a big challenge how to deal with Trump. It is not so easy so far. India has been very cautious in dealing with him. Of course, nobody knows when Prime Minister Modi meets him at any given point in time, what is he going to say? He would have wanted Prime Minister Modi to be in Washington. In fact, he had expressed that desire. He had a call with Prime Minister Modi on that when Prime Minister Modi was returning, but that did not happen. At the same time, when Asim Munir was in Washington, D.C., perhaps he would have wanted both of them to come together and to recommend him for a peace prize. You never know what is going on in his mind. It is not an easy situation because remember his exchange with Zelensky when they met him the first time in that Oval Office in front of the cameras. It is not a normal situation because he is playing out diplomacy right in the open on the camera, General Katoch. That's a big risk involved in Trump. Also, there is another thing that he would want to ask. He is always referring to Biden. Now, Biden was making decisions as the president of America, but he is not going to accept those decisions. He said that all those decisions were useless. Now, those were decisions made by a state, but he is not able to understand that that was the decision made by the president of America. He said that those were decisions made by Biden. So he's not going to regard what is previous agreements that have happened.
No, that is true. That is true. He's not going to regard anything of that. And he has made it very clear that Biden was a weak president. So he's trying to, in his public posturing to his MAGA constituency, he's trying to say that, listen, the Democrats had a weak president. My constituency, the MAGA constituency, you've got a strong president. Now, that image he is giving, and surprisingly, it's going very well with his MAGA constituency. Yeah. So, when he's talking to his home crowd, I don't see those people objecting. I don't see any of them shedding, are making outrageous remarks against Trump. I find them pretty supportive from what I've seen. At least in front of him, everybody is very supportive. And let's face it. You see, he holds the economic cards. Now with China, he couldn't really get what he wanted because China has got a leverage. They've got the leverage in terms of rare earths which they control. India doesn't have any leverage, not to that extent. But we have still held on, despite the fact that we have very limited leverage. We have held on, unlike the European Union, unlike Japan. Now that I think is it's still a very great achievement. We've done it quite well, and I am sanguine that the leadership will continue. We'll take a hit a little bit. That may happen, but we'll pull through. India is strong. India is a civilizational power, and I think in the long term we will win this round. Zafar.
Yeah, that's a very important point. That short term there might be a hit, or India's interest might suffer a bit, but in the long term, India is going to stay resolute to its ideals. The most important is the strategic autonomy that India has been speaking about all through, that it's not going to give up its strategic autonomy. And Minister Piyush Goyal also said that we cannot make a deal with a gun, uh, you know,
Right.
pointed at us, at our head. We're not going to do that. It will take time. We're going to take that time. It's fine that you have put tariffs on us, and India would be paying those tariffs, but we'll make the deal when the deal is acceptable to India. It is not going to, there is going to be no blackmail. And that's a very important thing. Unlike most other countries who have just gone the way that Trump has asked them to do, maybe a bit here and there, but by and large, they have been left with no other option but to do it. But India has stood firm so far that, okay, fine, there is an issue, we'll try and resolve it, but we'll resolve it in the way that is acceptable to us. We cannot be blackmailed, Rabinderji.
Oh, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, to everything that you said and to what General Kachor said, I just wanted to add one thing, if I may, maybe in a slightly
Yeah,
different
yeah,
context.
yeah.
I wanted to share with you, General Katoch probably knows, or I would, and your viewers, we have nominated Donald Trump for the Gandhi Peace Prize yesterday. And our rationale, sirs, is that, about a month ago, I was in Cambodia for the Phnom Penh Forum to prepare for ASEAN discussions. And Cambodia, Thailand have a huge, conflict. These two countries are our neighbors, civilizational connect, spiritual connect, etc. In our neighborhood, if there's peace and harmony, it's good for us. So when I came back, we announced that we will nominate Trump for the Gandhi Peace Prize in case he manages to bring peace in our neighborhoods. Yesterday or day before at the ASEAN summit, he did manage to sit down and get these guys to sign the peace accord. So yesterday we officially sent a letter to the government, uh, to whichever be the jury will be, to consider him for the Gandhi Peace Prize. Point is, you see, we as an independent think tank, the world is very complex today. The whole matrix which is out there, the optopolitics, the narratives which are playing out here and there, hither, thither. I think we need, maybe various, maybe creative vectors also of public diplomacy. So that has been one our little initiative and something we kind of set the ball rolling. As and when, Gandhi was bigger than Nobel. Come to think of it in a sense, right? Gandhiji was the epitome of no violence, and here Nobel was, okay, he made money, set up the price, but he made his money from dynamites, right? So that is also another aspect in my mind. And Cambodia, Thailand, our, neighbors, such deep linkages. So if there's peace, let us appreciate, celebrate peace where Trump can bring in some context. Why not?
Right. Uh, well, that's an important point of, him not in the India-Pakistan context, but in other contexts, he would have played a role in his own style to bring about peace, and he would have succeeded in some cases, in some instances. So credit has to be given there. But the fact that why India Pakistan is different, because these are two nuclear countries, and he only says that these are two big nuclear powers, and they were at it, they were going at it. Shining jets, 7 shining jets that were shot down. He while he talks about all of them, but he singles out India Pakistan conflict because of the two countries being the nuclear countries. General Katoch, you would agree that whatever we may say about Trump, he has changed the world. The way that we are talking every day about Trump, either he's talking about wars or he's talking about tariff, or somewhere he's trying to bring about those change. Maybe he knows that he's not going to come again, although he's speaking about that also. He said that he'll try and come back for the third term, which is not possible in America, but he's definitely talking about that also. But in other instances where he has been able to make a difference, resolve the issues, that is the credit that should go to him.
Let us be very clear. He's done an outstanding job. Every newspaper across the world talks of President Trump. He whatever he says is headlines. So he's caught that the attention of the people by what he utters. Right? Some ridicule him, some listen to him in a positive or a negative way. But the point is, they all listen to him. That is important. Now, as far as the narrative is concerned, I think if I have to put it down, the one war which he has really brought to an end is the Gaza war, the Israel-Gaza war. Now, I know that fighting is erupting again, but I have a feeling, that is, he's in a position to pressurize both parties. He's in a position to pressurize Israel, which is why the ceasefire took place, and he's in a position to pressurize the Arab world, which is why the Gazans will be kept quiet. So I understand that, yes, yesterday itself, firing broke out, 100+ people have been killed, those funerals are taking place. In any ceasefire, these things will happen. But I think that process has been strong. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had it at all. So let's put it that way. So he has done that. And if I have to make a statement, I will say, for that ceasefire, give him the peace prize. He deserves it for that. But besides that one, the Cambodia one, he's done nothing there. India, Pakistan, he had no role. In Russia, Ukraine, he couldn't do it. But okay, where he could, he had. So I think we will give, as you have very rightly said, give him credit where it is due. And I would say certainly on the Israel-Gaza front, something has happened. There is fragile peace broken off and on, but it is better than what it was. And Trump is responsible for that. He's done it well.
Right. And President Trump says that this Gaza war was, the war between Palestine and Israel was going on for 3,000 years, and he's dissolved a war which was as old as 3,000 years. While as for India, Pakistan, he says it's a 1,000-year-old war that is ongoing for the last 1,000 years, and he's trying to put that to an end. So this is typical Trump style, the way that he puts out things. We'll have to accept that, the way that he says that. But clearly, Trump is a headline every day. He comes up with a new statement and a new headline, and we're keeping track of Trump and all that he says. Thanks so much to our guests, Major General Dhruv Katoch, for joining us, and Ravinder Sachdeva for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts. And thanks to our viewers for watching the Mojo story. Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.